Alright, in this video we've got a couple example problems and they have equations that we want to turn into the standard form of a hyperbola. So the first thing that we want to do in this example is get rid of this 31 at the end. So I'm going to subtract that from both sides of the equation, and then I'm going to group together all my x's as well as all my y's. So I've got 4x squared plus 48x, and I'll put this together in parentheses, and then we also have a negative y squared plus 14y, and that will equal negative 31. Now normally in the past I've put this part right here in parentheses, but we're not going to do that in this case. I'm going to erase that because it would mess up the sign. So you'll see what I'm talking about in our next step. So our next step, we're going to want to factor out a 4 right here, and then also we want to factor out a negative from this and this. So let's go ahead and do that. Factoring out a 4, we're left with an x squared plus 12x. We could close parentheses. And now we never want a number other than a positive 1 in front of the variable squared. So we want to factor out a negative 1. So factoring out a negative, all that does is change that to y squared. It's going to be a positive y squared. And then that's going to actually be, see, I messed it up there. That's going to be a minus 14y. We could close these parentheses, and then we've got a negative 31 at the end. Now we work to complete the square. So I take my b term right here, which is 12. I divide that by 2, which is 6. And then I want to square that. So that gives me 36. And then I take my b term over here, which is negative 14. Divide that by 2. I get negative 7. And then I want to square negative 7. So that gives me 49. Okay, so these are the two numbers that I want to eventually add into this equation here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to rewrite everything. I've got 4 times x squared plus 12x, and then I'm going to add in my 36. So plus 36. I'm also going to have to add in some things to the right side of this equal sign when I write it, but we'll do that when I get to that point. And then we've got minus y squared minus 14y, and then we want to add in that plus 49, so I do the addition of 49, and that's in the parentheses. And then we've got equals a negative 31. Now we have to add in 36, but because we have a 4 that we factored out in front of it, we're actually going to add in 4 times 36. So it'd be like if we took that, multiplied it by 36, which is a positive 144. And then I do the same thing over here. I added in a 49, but technically that's the same thing, doing a negative 1 times 49. So that's the same thing as subtracting 49. Okay. Now I want to rewrite it again, and when I rewrite it, I could actually factor this part in parentheses. So that's going to be an x plus 6. We're squaring that, and then this is going to be a minus y minus 7 squared, and then that's going to all equal negative 31 plus 144 minus 49 is 64. Okay, now in our formula for a hyperbola, it's set equal to 1, so we want to divide this side by 64 so that we get a 1 over here, which means we also have to divide this by 64, and this gets divided by 64. So last thing we want to do is simplify. So 4 over 64 is the same thing as 1 over 16, so I'm going to write x plus 6, that's squared, over 16, and then we've got minus y minus 7 squared over 64, and that all equals 1. So that's going to be our final answer. It's done the same way as ellipses are done pretty much, but you have to take into account this negative. So when I group it, don't put it in parentheses at all, but remember to factor out a negative 1. So this sign is going to change and this side is going to change. And then you do the same thing, negative 1 times 49. So actually we're subtracting 49 from the left side, which means you have to subtract 49 from the right side. So that's it. Here's another problem that we could work through, and I'll try to go a little bit quicker since we've already done one. The first thing we want to do, again, is, whoops, this should be in red, is add 208 to both sides to get rid of that. And then we want to rewrite all this stuff so that I have my my y's together, and I only have that y squared. But here's my 4x squared with my 32x, and that all equal 208. Okay, you always want to have the variable that's being squared come after the variable that's being squared that's positive, so it should be like that. Now we want to complete the square and do all that stuff. So there's no bx term for our y squared, so we can keep that as it is. But we're going to have to factor out a negative 4 right here. So let's do negative 4, and then we're factoring out a negative 4, so I'm left with x squared minus 8x, and that will equal 208. Let's work to complete the square. So I take my b term right there, which is negative 8. I divide it by 2, which gives me a negative 4. And then I square that negative 4, which means I've got a 16. So that's what I'm going to add in. Let's rewrite it. Y squared minus 4 x squared minus 8 squared. I'm going to add in my 16, and then I've got a 208, and because I added in 16 here, which is also being multiplied by negative 4, let's do that, and that will give me what I need to do to this right side. So negative 4 times 16 is negative 64, so I subtract that from the right side. I rewrite things now, and I gotta factor, so let's say we got y squared minus 4. Factoring this, we've got a y minus 4, and that's being squared. 208 minus 64 is 144, so I put that over there. Last thing we have to do is divide the right side by 144 so that we get this all equal to 1, and that means I also have to divide this by 144 and this by 144, and we could simplify things. So y squared is going to be over 144 minus 4 divided by 144 reduces 1 over 36. So I'm just going to write x minus 4 squared over 36, and that's equal to 1. So there's my standard form right there. We do it the same way as what we did in the last example.